Hey guys, Charles Damiano here from the Bruce Lee collection, and today I thought I'd do a quick review on the film that I just watched on the History channel entitled The Death of Bruce Lee, and it was part of History's Greatest Mysteries. And what they did for 2 hours, they tried to solve the mystery behind the death of Bruce Lee. And I want to give a quick review on it because I've watched a lot of documentaries over the years, and coming from the perspective of a fan and collector such as myself, who's been a fan of Bruce Lee for over 48 years, I was really kind of a little tentative going into watching this, thinking it was going to be just another documentary on Bruce Lee, but it actually surprised me. And I love the angle that they took, because they used the angle of using Bruce Lee's brother, Robert Lee, who seemed to initiate this project, and he was there to try to solve the mystery behind his brother's death, because it seems like over the last almost half a century, he really wasn't satisfied with all the theories that were out there surrounding his brother's death. And they really did a nice job on featuring Robert Lee as the main person in the video that they were working for. And what the angle that Robert Lee took is he actually hired a detective, a Hong Kong detective from the 1970s that he's been friends with. And he was a very famous investigator by the name of Philip Chan. So they opened up the investigation again behind Bruce Lee's death, and they also featured Robert Lee's sister Phoebe Lee in this film as well. And I found it very intriguing, and I have to be honest with you, it actually kept my attention for the entire 2 hours, because it was a 2-hour episode behind solving the mystery of Bruce Lee's death. And they went over quite a few theories. I mean, you know, as we all know, the original theory that came out back in July 20th, 1973, when he first passed away, was that he died of a cerebral edema, a swelling of the brain, from an allergic reaction of aspirin that was given to him by his so-called mistress, Betty Ting Pei, after complaining of a headache while they were discussing the script of The Game of Death in her apartment. And he took it and he lied down and he never woke up. And they cited the death as a death by misadventure, being caused from an allergic reaction to the aspirin medication that she gave him. And I know for us fans, it was really hard to accept that, because everyone was saying, how could a healthy man die? The guy was at the epitome of his career. He was in the best shape ever. He was making films. He was on his way to superstardom, and all of a sudden we lose our hero Bruce Lee to an aspirin. So everyone had a really hard time believing that. So then all these theories came out, and they covered every theory in this 2-hour episode. So I encourage you guys to watch it. I'm not going to spoil the ending for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but they do cover quite a few theories, everything from, you know, Betty Ting Pei being involved with his death and somehow her being behind the death of Bruce Lee, to possibly Raymond Chow being involved with his death, and also Lo Wei being involved with the death of Bruce Lee. So they cover all these, and Philip Chan does a great job in investigating, you know, Betty Ting Pei and Raymond Chow and Lo Wei, and he comes to conclusions on each of these theories, and he does some investigation. And the interesting part is at the beginning of the video, he opens up the autopsy reports, which he needs, you know, permission from Robert Lee to open up the files to see what was originally written in Bruce Lee's autopsies back in the 70s. So it was really interesting seeing him going through all the notes and reading what they cited as the cause of death and all the highlights they had on his death. So I encourage you guys, if you haven't seen this, to watch this video, because it's very intriguing, it's very suspenseful, and it kept me on the end of my seat the entire 2 hours. They also go into the theory of the triads having something to do with his death, and there was even one point in the video where they said it was possible that Bruce didn't die in Betty Ting Pei's apartment, and that one of the triad members from back in the 70s they interviewed, because there was some speculation that he may have had a fight with one of the triad members who were trying to kill him or threatening Betty Ting Pei, and that he may have died in a playground next door, and they brought his body back to the bedroom. So you're listening to this and you're going, could that be a possibility? So I mean, it was really very interesting. And then Robert comes out and says, can you look into, Bruce possibly being poisoned? And, on top of all this, they have Bay Logan, involved with narrating the program, and also Matthew Polly, who wrote the book or the biography on Bruce Lee, A Life, and they're giving their viewpoints on all this as well. So I found the movie fascinating. I'd love to know what you guys thought of the movie who have seen the movie, so please comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this film. Did you like it? Do you think it adds some closure to the death of Bruce Lee? Love to hear from you, so please chime in on the comments below. They also went on to think that he may have been poisoned because there was a witness at the funeral that said that, when they looked at his body in the casket, they saw that his fingernails were black, and that only comes about by possibly being poisoned. So then they went into that side of the investigation. Could he possibly have been poisoned? They did find hash in his system, so Bay Logan thought maybe the hash was laced with arsenic or some kind of a poison because someone may have wanted to kill him. So they went on and on with all these different theories, and then Matthew brings up the theory of Bruce dying from possible heat stroke, and they went to a doctor and they talk about, hey, if you remove the sweat glands from someone's armpits, can that be enough to cause heat stroke? And as we know, there's sweat glands all over the body. So then he kind of dismisses that theory because he says just removing the sweat glands from the armpit possibly couldn't really just cause someone to pass away of heat stroke, because you do sweat from other glands that you have in the body. So this goes on and on and on for 2 hours, and then they mix in a lot of clips of Bruce Lee's film in the interim. By the way, there is no rare footage. I know a lot of collectors were emailing me saying, I hope there's rare footage in this documentary. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of footage that we already haven't seen on Bruce Lee, but they did use some nice quality footage, I thought, throughout this film that made sense in the parts that they put the footage in. So I thought they did a very nice job editing it into this movie. And then they went on to interview Yun Wah, who was really fun to see because he was the stunt double for Bruce Lee, and they interviewed him and they asked him and he was the one that did the backflips in Enter the Dragon, and also the backflip when Bruce takes Bob Wall's foot and tosses him over. That was all Yun Wah, who was Bruce's stunt double and did most of the acrobatics for Bruce in his films. And they went to him because another theory was, why did Bruce Lee lose so much weight? What kind of difference did he seem from when he first met Bruce Lee on Enter the Dragon to the end of Enter the Dragon, when he filmed obviously the fight scene with Sammo Hung? That was the last fight scene filmed. So it goes on, and Yun Wei gives his theories on how Bruce lost all the weight, but again, they dismissed that as well. And then they come to the conclusion at the end that, it may have been caused by the aspirin medication, and they go on to, break down what else was in the equagesic that Betty Ting Pei gave Bruce. And, at the end, you finally come to a conclusion on what they feel was the death of Bruce Lee. And they go to Robert and they ask Robert Lee, they relay the information to him, and they hopefully felt that it gave Robert some closure into his brother's death. And Robert lets out a big giant sigh, and he does feel more relieved after they exhausted probably 8 to 10 of the theories that we've been hearing for years that have been out there. And by the way, I put out a video just a month ago, entitled, How Did Bruce Lee Really Die? Because, we also heard of the drug letters that came out a month ago, and we all felt that the cocaine may have been another contributing factor to his death. So if you haven't seen that, I'll include that in the link above on this video, so you guys can click on that and watch that as well. It's a great documentary on what may have caused Bruce Lee's death. But I'm not going to ruin the ending for you guys. So for those of you who haven't seen the end of this documentary, I recommend you try to watch it. It is on the History Channel. It was aired tonight at 8 p.m. on History's Greatest Mysteries. I'm sure they're going to be playing it throughout the month because it was a great documentary. So I recommend you find it and hear what they say about what they discovered to be the cause of Bruce Lee's death. And on that note, I want to end this video by saying thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. I don't want to spoil the ending, but for those of you who've seen the video, please chime in, comment, let me know if you found closure during this video and if you feel better about what they claim to be the cause of Bruce Lee's death. I know I had a good friend of mine, and I'll give a shout out to Harry McKenzie, who I know over 25 years. He's a big fan of my channel, and he texted me and he said, "Hey Charles, man, how do you feel now that you listened to all the theories, you watched the video, and you heard what they feel were the cause of Bruce Lee's death?" And I kind of chimed back and I just said, hey, it definitely adds a little more closure to his death, and it makes me feel a little more satisfied into canceling out a lot of the other theories that were out there. And I felt pretty good about what they came up with during this documentary. So let me know what you think. How did you feel at the end of this episode when you saw the conclusion to the film that we just reviewed called The Death of Bruce Lee? Please comment below, let us know your thoughts, and once again, thank you guys for watching. I wanted to just make a quick review of this documentary. Let me know what you thought of it, and once again, Charles Damiano signing out from the Bruce Lee Collection, as always saying, have fun collecting, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Thanks for watching, guys.